What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about amp settings. We've heard this question before on the interwebs. Hey, what are your amp settings? I want to do the same thing you're doing. Or what are your pedal settings or any of that stuff? And honestly, it's kind of pointless to ask that question because everybody's setup is a little different, right? So today we're going to talk about how you can find your own, how you can adjust your amp to get what it is you want out of it within the expectations of what you're working with. So the size of the amp, all that kind of stuff. But the real importance of this is if you understand the baseline settings of how an amp can and should and may be set up. Obviously you can do it however you want because you create a sound you want, doesn't matter. But there's a couple fundamental things here I want to give you that will translate then into adding pedals and doing all this stuff and then building out a bigger rig. But understanding the baseline of how this works is super important. The other thing is that when people call us and ask questions about, I want a higher output pickup, I want I want a low output pickup, a high output pickup. Well, how does that affect everything? So we're going to talk about that too, because those two things, your pickup output and the amp, really work together. So we're going to try to kind of dive into that a little bit. Before we do that, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like guitar stuff, because we get nerdy on Mondays. We got other stuff, but we're going to get nerdy on Mondays. The other thing is, if you're a Patreon supporter or a YouTube member, you can hit the little join buttons down there. We'll leave links to that in the description. You get 10% off everything at Dylan Talks Tone, which is pretty cool. And then the other way you can support the channel is you can go to dylantalkstone.com, buy pickups and all that kind of stuff that we make. So if you don't really have sponsors for the channel, I'm just going to sponsor it. And of course, you are going to sponsor it by watching this video. All right, before we get into actual knob twisting, I think it's real important to understand some of the fundamentals of how the amp works. So let's do an old-fashioned whiteboard. Actually, this isn't an old-fashioned whiteboard. This is the paper that we ship pickups on. So probably whoever's order we ship out next, you may see this graph in your paper or in your pickup box. Okay, so here's how this works. So if we take basically the way an amp works is, let's say we have a signal, right, like this, and we want to make it bigger, right? So we make it louder. So now it's bigger, right? That's pretty basic, right? So there's our center light. That's basically what an AC signal looks like, which is what an audio signal is. So now we've amplified it and we've made it bigger. Now every amplifier has basically like a ceiling that it can make before it just can't make it any louder, okay? And so the more watts you have, so 10 watt, 13 watt, 22 watt, 50 watt, 100 watt, this line will be higher, which is sort of in basic. We're trying to, now there's going to be some dorks that get in the comments and tell me I'm wrong and blah, blah, blah. There's more details you missed, but we're really trying to give you a high level kind of for beginners thing on this, okay? So the long and the short of it is that once the signal gets big enough to hit this, it sort of can't go anymore and it just sort of squishes, right? And then it squares off and it comes down here and it sort of squishes and it goes up. This is what we call compression. This is where we start to hear that sweet overdrivey kind of sound, right? So this is basically called, we're gonna, for lack of a better word, which this is a good word actually, we're gonna call this how much headroom your amp has. So if you have a 10 watt amp, it's going to be lower. If you have a 30 watt amp, it's going to be higher. If you have a 50 watt amp, if you have a 100 watt amp, it's going to be higher. You're going to have more headroom. So in here, you've got clean signal. Like you can move within here and not have any compression, or a lot less. There will be some limitations to the circuit that will always cause a little bit of compression, but basically the bottom line is if you can keep below this limit, right, then you'll understand what you can work with and have a real nice clean signal. Now, once you hit this point, then you're into quote unquote overdrive. You're into compression, which are two different things. So to just be real fair here, we have to let's say you have a boost pedal, just to give you a real high level thing here. So boost would be to make this from here to here, and then overdrive would push your signal into compression right here, and then a distortion pedal would actually create this at a lower level, more or less. That's the real high level version of it. But for just amp purposes, this would be clean. This would get a little dirty, and this would be at the threshold of that sort of overdrive. So the magic of setting up an amp kind of and understanding what you can do with that amp is understanding what this level of headroom is. Okay? That's really cool. Now, here's the thing though. There's a couple things. First of all, audio signal does not look like this. It looks sort of square. It's got a little crinkly spot. It kind of goes like this, and then it kind of comes down here, and then it kind of goes like this, and then it kind of like a guitar signal does not look like this smooth thing, right? And so it'll have these little bumps all over it, and those are sort of the little transients and little harmonics and the little pieces of the high frequency and stuff that are there, right? So that when you boost a treble, part of this will move and part of it won't. So if you hit that headroom and part of your signal goes over it, then part of it might compress or distort or whatever, because it's not this perfect thing, okay? And the other thing that we should learn about is that if we have this center line and we have a pickup, a low output pickup is going to make electricity, because that's all a pickup does is it makes electricity, right? A lower output pickup is going to do this, and a higher output pickup is going to do this, right? So if you have an amp with this much headroom, a lower output pickup will give you more room to move before you start to hit that compression, versus a high output pickup. We're going to demonstrate that here in just a couple of minutes. So when somebody says, I want a higher output pickup, the very first question I ask is, what amp are you using? Because are you trying to get compression? Are you trying to be louder? Are you trying to be heard within a mix with other friends? Those are all questions that are not just output questions. So that's why I ask those questions when you email me. So a lower output pickup will give you more room to hit that amp threshold. A higher output pickup will give you less room to hit that amp threshold. So those are things to understand. Let's go ahead and go over to the amp now. We're going to grab a couple of guitars, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, let's start with something real low output. So our Silver Sky. Real low output pickups. These are under 6K, you know, high fives. So we've got our amp at 5. Let's go up a little bit. All right, so at 5.5 or just below 6, we start to get some breakup here. Now what's really cool about that is you can get real clean if you pick softly, and then get it to break up if you pick harder. And so we're right about 5.5. Right? So pick softer, clean, pick harder, and it breaks up. Now, if we turn this up to 6.5 or 7, now it's broken up. But what we can do is we can turn our volume down a little bit. To about 7 on our guitar. There there's 8. Starts to break up again. So we can set the amp on the edge of that threshold where it gets done amplifying and starts compressing, and then we can have that sort of dynamics where our pick dynamics will be really nice because we can pick softly and get a really nice clean clear thing, or we can kind of push it, which is really fun. We've not used any pedals or anything, that's just this. So it's just the low output pickups and a 13 watt amp, right? So it breaks up at about between 5.5 and 6 is where we start to feel that. Okay, let's go ahead and grab a higher output pickup just a little bit and see where that ends us up. All right, now I'm not gonna move the amp. So we're at that kind of edge of breakup for the low output pickups. And now this is about a 7.5, right, little over 7K single coil. This is our Enduro in my Texas Toast Icon. So if we hit this, my guess is it's gonna break up right away, even though that last pickup was a lot cleaner. Just as I thought, because we're making more electricity with this pickup, therefore we're pushing the amp at the same setting further. So let's try to turn the amp down now and find where we're totally clean. So now we're down at 4.5 to try to keep this thing clean because we have a little bit hotter pickup than what that other one was. So let's try to find that sort of edge of breakup where we can kind of go back and forth with picking dynamics. There it is. So it's about 5, where the other lower output pickup, we could turn the amp up to about 6 before it started doing that. So the hotter that pickup is, the less headroom the same amp is going to have. It's going to break up sooner on the volume knob. All right, so let's kind of push this. Let's go up to about 6. So there we go. So we can have it pretty broken up at 6, where before it was actually about 5.5, right? It's interesting how it's not totally linear, but you'll have to find that point for every output of pickup with the same amp. Bottom line is, to get us totally clean, we had to turn the amp down a full 1.5 numbers, basically, on the dial. So let's go ahead and grab something a little hotter. Now, we had to be at about 4.5 to get clean with the other, right about, let's see, right about, yeah, a little over 4 to get clean with that 7.2K pickup. Now this is our Dylan Talks Tone P90, the best P90 in the world. And this is 8.2K with 2 L nickel 5 magnets. So this is a lot of pickup. So let's see at 4.5 what this sounds like if we hadn't touched anything else. It's already breaking up at 4.5. So to get totally clean, we had to go down to 3.5. I need new strings on this guitar. Okay, so the way I would personally use this guitar, because of that, because I don't think that a pickup, that an amp really works that well, that low. It's not designed to go that low. It's designed to work with the tubes cranking. So what we're gonna do is, this is the way I typically do it. So, well, actually, first of all, let's find that breakover point. All right, so there's 4.5. All right, so there it is. So now, I'm gonna show you the way I use this amp. I actually crank this junk all the way. I put all the knobs on 7. So this is the way I use a low output amp with a high output pickup. Okay, so that gets kind of the pickup, the pickup in the amp kind of on song. And then what I do in order to clean it up is I turn my volume down. Plus, I don't play all the way clean anyway, so it doesn't matter. Let's do it on the neck pickup. It's actually easier. Now, something I wanted you to hear right there. On the higher strings, pretty clean. Let's not touch anything and only use the lower strings. Broken up. That's because every amp and every guitar is also going to amp it. Let me say this. It's important to understand that when you boost a certain frequency into compression, you can sort of separate them. So our higher frequencies, I mean, I'm picking those pretty hard now. And they aren't going into compression. This one, yeah, I need new strings. I just tuned this and it's... Okay, so there we go. So now we can fix that by lowering our bass down to about 5. Cleans it up a little bit. So not only are we talking about overall output, but remember that when we boost our bass frequency above that compression, or we boost our treble frequency above that compression, it will also do the same in pieces. So it's not just the amplitude of the entire signal, but it's parts of it, okay? That's important too, because some guitars will work different and better, differently, not better, at different amp settings because of the frequencies that they're good at making. So if you've got a really high output pickup with a lot of low end and not very strong mids, that's going to act different than, say, that Silver Sky over there that's completely on the other end of the spectrum. You're going to have to change the EQ side of your amp to do the same thing. So what I would really say with this whole thing, what I wanted to talk about today though, was really understanding that sort of breakover point. So when you're making electricity with the guitar, how much electricity are you making? Okay, how much electricity can you put into this amp for it to amplify before it tops out at that compression rate or at that compression level, right? And then finding that breakover point. Now, everybody's going to use this different. And what I'd like to do is have you get in the comments and tell me how you use this. Are you a person who says, I just want everything clean all the time? Are you a person who says, I want the amp to be at the very edge so that when I pick hard, it sends it into compression, and when I let off, it's nice and clean? Are you a person like me who likes to drive the amp beyond that with the pickups and then use my volume knob to do all the kind of adjusting and everything? Now, let me know in the comments how you do it. Some of you might say, I like to use the amp as a pedal platform, right? Which means that what you're doing is you're basically keeping it totally clean and then putting an amp in front, or a pedal in front of it, which is basically another amp. If you want me to make a video about taking the knowledge of this and understanding this threshold and then putting an overdrive or a boost or a distortion pedal, 3 different things in front of this, we can do that because I can show you what that does. And we'll use the same guitars and we'll use the same amp so that you get that good reference between the videos so you can kind of understand how to build that. Because like I said, boost, overdrive, and distortion are 3 completely different things. So let me know if that's something that you want to do. I think it would be kind of fun. I've got a couple of different things we could use for that, a couple different pedals on the shelf that we could use for that to kind of demonstrate that so that you can sort of get a baseline, then build everything on top of that. I think what happens is a lot of people try to just plug stuff in and twiddle knobs until they get a sound that they want. And maybe you end up sort of searching for a while. Like it's not really what you're looking for. If you understand the fundamentals of what this guitar does with this amp and how to adjust it, then build on top of that. Then when you pick up another guitar and put it in front of this amp, you might have to adjust something just a little bit because that guitar acts differently than this one. Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to do. Do me a favor, go to dylantalkstone.com and you can listen to all the pickups that you just heard. You can also buy them there because that's really what we do. That's our real job. And Patreon, links, all the things that you do when you watch a YouTube video. All these guitars are actually available at links in the description. Well, not this one. This one's super special. But ones like it are. Thanks for hanging out. This has been super fun. We'll see you in the next video.